More than 500 people have been killed and 10,000 more arrested amid nationwide protests in Iran. Nine's Europe correspondent Mimi Becker joins us live from outside the Iranian embassy in London. Mimi, demonstrators are gathering there in solidarity with Iranian protesters.
Jane, they are, and they say that now is the time for change. They feel that this wave of protests is different to any other and is gaining serious momentum. As you say, the death toll is climbing. More than 500 people have been killed and 10,000 people arrested in Iran. Now, Iranian authorities have warned that those arrested could face the death penalty. Here in London, the protests have been incredibly peaceful, and those on the ground want everyone to know that they stand with those in Iran, that they're proud of them for standing up against the regime. This wave of protests is now in its 15th day. They're responding to the Crown Prince's calls to take to the streets, and it's expected that will happen once again in Iran tonight. There is a full internet blackout there, so communication is lacking, but the videos show significant protests, waves of thousands of people, fires burning, state buildings alight, as well as mosques across those cities. Jane.
Mimi, thank you. Welcome back. US President Donald Trump is this morning considering military intervention in Iran, where a crackdown on anti-government demonstrators has left more than 500 people dead.
To discuss, retired US Air Force Commander Glenn Ignazio joins us live from San Diego. Firstly, Glenn, good morning. Despite Iran's digital blackout, they are very good at keeping things in-house. Images of violent clashes are still emerging. What are you hearing about the situation on the ground?
Yes, it's really rather intense, and good morning to you. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of people killed because the IRGC, or at least the security apparatus, has basically started opening fire on them. You know, when they shut down the internet, it was really concerning. Were they trying to shut down the coordination of the protesters, or was the Iran regime about to do something brutal? But the uprising is rather significant. It's one of the first times we've really seen this for a possible regime change.
Well, Iran's supreme leader has vowed that Iran will retaliate if the US does attack. How do you think that is going to play into Donald Trump's decision-making?
I don't think it's really going to matter. Unfortunately, Khomeini is blaming Israel and U.S. now for this particular uprising, which is not the case. The other thing is they've attacked Israel and others rather significantly, and they failed at that. So I don't think it's a military issue that there's a concern. But as far as the United States, we could do a variety of different things, from a cyber standpoint to shut down communications and coordination from the security forces. And if there was a kinetic strike or bombs dropping, then at that point they could hit the IRGC headquarters, law enforcement, and different ones that are actually shooting protesters. So there's a lot of different options on the table to intimidate the Khomeini regime.
How much longer do you think it would take for any other country to act? Like how long do we need to see these demonstrations continue? And they're happening outside Iran as well.
Yeah, it's happening worldwide. So I think you really see the perception, or at least the perspective, of what the Iranian people worldwide want to do. One of the things that, if you look at a situation like this, there has to be somebody that is rising to the level that is going to be sponsored, like for a better term, to take over from Khomeini. And we don't see that. So we see the protesters, you know, they're not completely organized, and I don't mean that to be critical. There's a lot of them, but there has to be somebody that has to rise that would be put in place to replace Khomeini from the protesters' perspective, and we don't see that yet. So hopefully that will change. Timing, don't know, but if they have something like that, then you're really pushing to get somebody replaced.
It's been a very busy fortnight, but we're just 2 weeks into 2026. Already the US has targeted Venezuela and Syria. This doesn't really mesh with Trump's campaign promise to really focus on domestic issues. So why do you think there's been this change of policy, and how much of it is about distracting from issues at home?
I don't know. I look at each particular event. Of course, there's always like that movie Wag the Dog or something like that about distracting. But I looked at a lot of different things like Venezuela. You know, even outside of all the particular legal, 20 to 40% of the global cocaine was distributed through Venezuela. That's around the world, to you, everywhere. So there's impacts there. There's impacts to Ukraine because this would crash the oil prices for Russia. As far as Iran and everything, we do look at the nuclear. There's so many different aspects to this that have always had a reaction to a prior event, like the soldiers being killed. So I don't think it's much as far as distraction, but again, it strikes not putting boots on the ground that Trump promised. again, not being a political aspect to this apolitically, but I don't think it's really a distraction. I think it's really intent on hitting these targets.
Well, with all that in mind, how do you think the situation in Iran is going to develop over the next few days?
Again, I hope somebody rises, or at least the original Shah's son is one of the prominent individuals that could possibly take over. So the sooner somebody like that could get in safely, or somebody again rises within the protesters' avenue that considers and guarantees a freedom of the people, the sooner that happens, the sooner that something could happen. But they're really targeting the Khomeini regime right now to possibly take them out. But if they do, then who takes over immediately? That's the concern.
I feel like every time we talk, we say we'll see what happens in the next few days, and something big does. So, Glenn, we'll chat next time and see what it brings. Thank you for your time.
You bet. Take care of yourself.
The dust has barely settled following Donald Trump's military operation in Venezuela, and already the US president is contemplating intervention in Iran. All the while, domestic tensions continue to flare after a US citizen was killed by an immigration agent in Minneapolis. Joining us to discuss today's headlines is Liberal Senator Andrew Bragg in Sydney and 3AW's Shane McGuinness in Melbourne. Andrew, first you, is Trump right to consider military intervention?
Well, Iran are the baddest people on earth, pretty much. I mean, this is the worst regime. They're harbouring terrorists. They're terrible to their own people. And so the best thing we could do for humanity would be to get rid of the Iranian regime. So my hope is that the US will consider all its options to rid humanity of these terrible people.
Seems a long way from Trump claiming no new wars, but here we are. Shane, first to Venezuela for you. Is the US at the risk of overestimating its own power here?
Well, I think when it comes to Venezuela, Joel, I mean, I think there was a lot of support when the US toppled Maduro. You have a dictator, an illegitimate president. So I think there was some widespread support for that. However, it's what the US does now. And I think this is the question for Venezuelan people. What is the US's long-term plan for how they plan to govern or at least oversee Venezuela for the time being? The question then becomes, as you were just talking to Andrew, about what does the US want to do next? Donald Trump has already spoken about Colombia. He's already spoken about intervention in Mexico. Again, this even kind of goes against his own base at the moment when it comes to America first.
Yeah, it's a lot going on in the foreign sphere, but domestically, the US has also got some issues. They seem to be at odds with these ICE protests that are ongoing at the moment. We saw that, very tragic killing of a woman in Minneapolis. What's he got going on there? Is his foreign issues trying to, mask stuff happening domestically?
I think he's got to focus on the big ones. And, if Iran was to be toppled, I mean, that would be the big one, right? Because they are the global centrepiece of a lot of the bad operations. Hamas, Hezbollah. I mean, they're trying to interfere in our country here in Australia because they hate open Western societies. Meanwhile, they're repressing, of course, their own citizens. So I know that the US should be focused on the really big ones. I don't think they can sustain a dozen different little proxy wars. And then at home, they've got to be really careful that they're treating people with respect. I mean, they can't go around shooting people. I think they've got to be very careful that they protect their own citizens. If they want to deport people, then they've also got to do it in an orderly way.
This woman...
They can't be shooting people.
You can't. It seems strange that you have to say that. You can't be shooting your own people.
No.
And this woman wasn't even an illegal immigrant.
We have to maintain standards in the West, right? I mean, we're not going to be in any position to lecture others if we're going around shooting our own people. I mean, it's unacceptable.